If you're frustrated, stressed, or annoyed by joint stiffness, this is the video for you because I want to show you exactly what you can do, just very simple things to relieve that inflammation. Go ahead and click that red subscribe button and that bell so you can get updates and notifications when I release new videos so you don't miss out. If this video is helpful, go ahead and hit that thumbs up while you're watching to let me know that you liked it and put a comment below if it was helpful. Here we go. Everyone who might be struggling with arthritis, with joint pain, or just seem to be dealing with chronic inflammation, this video is for you. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about inflammation and how exercise plays a role. So when we think about inflammation and controlling inflammation, many times we think about doing that with diet. And that is 100% right. Diet does play a huge part in helping manage inflammation. But one of the big things that people don't necessarily think about right away with inflammation is exercise. Many times if you have joint pain, if you have a diagnosis of osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, any sort of arthritis, we tend to give up exercise first because we think it's going to further damage our joint, further damage our cartilage, and we want to protect that. Well, I'm here to tell you today that that is a myth. So exercise is one of the most important things you can do to help manage your inflammation and protect your joint. So what happens with osteoarthritis and inflammation in general? When we have, in our joints, when we have pain or when we have arthritis, our anti-inflammatory cells don't work as well. Versus if we don't have any joint pain, our anti-inflammatory cells usually do a pretty good job at flushing out all of the inflammation. And so we don't necessarily have pain. But when we have arthritis, those anti-inflammatory cells don't work as well. Now this is obviously much more complicated scientifically, but I'm going to make it pretty easy for you today. So our anti-inflammatory cells don't work as well, and we also don't have as many. So as our arthritis continues to progress, we start to lose those anti-inflammatory cells. So the more often that we aren't moving, aren't exercising, those inflammatory cells are able to nestle right into your joint and create inflammation or create swelling. Now what inflammatory cells don't like is exercise. And there's actually been quite a few research studies on this, on how exercise can help improve our anti-inflammatory cells. Again, much more complicated, but essentially exercise really helps to build those anti-inflammatory cells. Our joints and those inflammatory cells don't like when we move because they can't nestle in. They can't bring in that inflammation and find a nice little home. If we're constantly moving, that inflammation stays away or stays at bay for the most part. So what I always recommend people for managing chronic inflammation, especially if you have arthritis, is constant or frequent movement. So obviously we can't be moving 24/7. But there are things that we can do throughout the day more frequently so those inflammatory cells don't have time to get in and nestle in the joint. One of the biggest things I see with my clients is a lot of times people have joint stiffness, especially in the knees. And the low back, you can sometimes feel it too. But it's because these joints are used daily, walking. Basically, anytime you're on your feet, you can feel that knee stiffness. Whereas if your shoulder's stiff, it might not be as limiting, but definitely still is. So one of the biggest things that I recommend people do is light activity. So this is not necessarily an exercise workout routine that you sit down and do for 30 minutes. It's regular activity throughout the day because many times people have stiffness when they're sitting, laying, or standing in one position for a prolonged period of time. And that's because those inflammatory cells come in and they nestle in and they start to wreak havoc. They cause pain and a bunch of other things. So one of the ways that we can prevent those inflammatory cells is by just moving. And that's not necessarily like doing a bunch of squats and lunges and all that kind of stuff. It's literally just moving your arm or leg. Most of the times legs, because again, knee stiffness can be very limiting throughout the day. Move your legs. When you're sitting in a desk chair, if you're working, if you are watching TV, watching a movie, if you're just kind of sitting there and you know you'll be sitting there for a decent amount of time, really all you have to do is just move your leg. So I'm going to show you just a couple of things that you can do, either standing if you want to stand up for a second if you're sitting for a long period of time, or just in the chair. So first I'm going to stand up and show you one exercise. So with this exercise, all you need to do, so a lot of times when we're sitting, our knees get kind of stuck in this bent position. And really all we want to do is just try to straighten your knee all the way back, because these muscles back here can get tight. And so a lot of times I hear that there's a lot of stiffness and tightness when you try to straighten it. But you can do the sitting, you can do the standing. It's just trying to straighten the leg. Now what this is doing though is using those thigh muscles to help get some of that inflammation out as well. So this is just every 10-15 minutes. Really try to straighten and bend your knee as much as you can so you get out of being in this position and start to get into that straight position. Another way you can do this is if you're sitting with your knees bent like how we usually are, every once in a while just straighten your leg out and just have it rest on the floor. Just try to change the positions of your legs so it's not in the same position over and over again. With back stiffness, standing up is good, but not necessarily like standing at a standing desk. It's standing and moving. So if you can get up and just do like marching, where you're lifting one leg and then the other, get up and do just some light movements, kicking your legs side to side. So you can just do a standing march, or you can just take one leg out to the side. So there's lots of different things. Again, another one is taking one leg back at a time. It's just these light movements. So it'll take not even 30 seconds to go through some of these movements, but it's really going to help you with that joint stiffness and keeping inflammation out of your joint. Again, the longer that you are in one position, the more time those inflammatory cells have to nestle into the joint. So just doing regular light activity, I would say every between 10-20 minutes. See if you can just move your leg. It's not you have to get up and walk every 10-20 minutes. It's just moving your limbs. So low back pain and knee stiffness or knee pain are the two most common types that we see with joint stiffness that's going to be very limiting. So, but there are also, of course, other joints that might get stiff and that are going to be limiting, but those are kind of the two main ones. So, if you have joint stiffness, I'm going to put a link in the comments below because I have a handout that's perfect for you. It's a free handout that goes through each joint and gives you example exercises on what you can do to relieve that joint stiffness and combat inflammation. So exercise is great for inflammation, but we have to know the right exercises. Pain can also drive up inflammation, and so if you're doing exercises that are super painful for you, that's actually going to drive up inflammation, which is one of the main reasons you have to find the exercises that are right for you. Who can best help with that? I can. So if you need help on finding the best exercises for you because you are so sick of dealing with this inflammation and it's causing you stress and it's causing you frustration, then let me know. You can send me a direct message or go to www.keeptheadventurealive.com and you can schedule a free call with me. It's the first button you'll see. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. And remember, keep your joints moving to get rid of inflammation and stiffness.